All right. I am recording this to remember it, but maybe I'll put it up on YouTube if I feel comfortable putting it up there. I am Jim Porter, PhD, licensed mental health counselor, and I have been having trouble understanding why capitalism doesn't make sense, especially when we're assuming that everything works out if things are unregulated. And that is, and also I'm going to bring up the fairy tale of the invisible hand of the market, which I just brought up and told you it was a fairy tale. And I don't know if I'll talk more about the invisible hand anymore, but I'll tell you why it's a fairy tale. I think capitalism nowadays implies the invisible hand of the market, which means that whatever happens in unfettered market trading, which means not just the stock market, it means when you go to the store and you pay somebody something, or when you buy a car from somebody and you agree on a price, all that stuff. Negotiations are happening. And apparently, magically, under all that, everybody gets what they need. So I think the assumption of capitalism is identical to the assumption all couples make, and probably all people, but all couples make this assumption, and that is this is such a great idea to be unified as a couple with this other person, and we're going to do very well together. I'm going to be nice to that person. They're going to be nice to me. I'm going to be fair. They're going to be fair. And therefore, each of us is going to get what they want. And what happens in every couple, I'm sure, pretty sure, is that that falls apart quite quickly, like within a year or less. Everybody knows about the honeymoon period. But what people don't know they're finding out when they find out that everything's not going to go well, it is very hard to know what someone's needs are. I'm going to say something real quick to make sure that we have our definitions clear. And that is that wants and needs are not different. There is no crucial need that is different than somebody just wanting something. What we need to define is how serious and important it is to meet someone's desire, to follow their request, and also what we need in return for that, or what we need to be able to supply them with something that they want. A need is basically just a socially agreed upon desire. A need, I think a lot of people think, are something that's a matter of life and death. But nothing's a matter of life and death because you are going to die. And the hard truth is that our desires are there because in some way or another they had some evolutionary survival and reproduction value in the past. Our desires are really needs. They were wired in a long time ago. If you believe in young earth creationism, you could say they were wired in 6,000 years ago. But if you're being what I call realistic, they were wired in before there were such things as humans. They were wired into mammals and reptiles, and we have their lineage. And these desires sometimes help us and sometimes hurt us. So, number two, not only do we not, number one is not only do we not really know what other people need. Number two, sometimes it takes a lot of work to know what we need. And what I mean by what we need is by what we really, really want. When we calm down and analyze ourselves and our situation and realize what we're not getting that we want. So, capitalism can't do this either. Capitalism is very bad about doing this. The ideas about capitalism have something to do with If we were not supplying people with what they need, they wouldn't be giving us money. That is superstition. That is like saying that an abused person is going to leave their partner. We can't really predict that happening a lot. I'm not even sure what the data is on that anymore, but it's not. I don't. I'm not even sure it's a majority of the time, but it's a terribly small amount of time. What really drives someone to leave a partner is when something inside them feels worse about staying with them than they do about going away. So, or miracle of miracles, somebody starts to realize somehow that there are better things out there, or at least think that there might be better things out there. And what makes things better and worse? How they feel. So, how do we know what other people want? And how do we know what we want? And as you can see, there's an implication there. How do we know what other people want if they can't put it into words, if they can't get an image in their head and really understand what rings true for them? Um, what a person has to do to know what they want is really calm down and think about things that are happening that they don't like to see happen, uh, things that have made them happy in the past. They probably have to have some life education or formal education of what's going to help them in the future, and what is going to help them now. So they can start to think about trading off something I want now for something more important that I can get later, right? But also, it goes in the reverse direction. If we're thinking that we're going to put off everything so that we can be happier in the future, put off getting things we need now for happiness in the future, we know that's not possible. So we know that there are impossible to reach perfect uh, agreements. We know that even if we're not talking to someone else, we might have to risk sacrificing something in our future for something now, or risk sacrificing something now for something in our future. And we don't even know if it's going to work. So then that's where our emotions come in. We we are using emotions, but we're also willing to look at external data and feedback from the environment and from people. And so one of the elements that we go with are what's been happening. I'm using sort of a paraphrase of what's called observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And that's in different kinds of paradigms about communication. So an observation is what you're seeing happen, feeling happen, smelling happen, tasting happen, touching happen, and all the things you're sensing inside, and all the things that are going through your mind. And you start to judge that you like something or don't like something happening. And then you have necessarily included feelings with that because that's the only way to like or not like something. Needs are defined as abstractions that can be met by something happening in our environment. And sometimes it's good to name a need, like I need security. That can sort of help us orient, or I need justice or fairness. I need equity, I need equality, and all that stuff. And again, imagine a couple talking about this stuff, caring enough what the other person's trying to communicate. And you could see how this could be a little informative. You know what I mean? This is something they could not know just inferring from the other person's behavior. Okay, and capitalism infers from our behaviors. It infers from us not asking for stuff that we don't need that stuff. It infers that since we're not willing to pay for certain things, that we don't need that stuff. And it infers that when we do pay for certain things, that we want and need those things. But it's an incorrect assumption. So then, let's say we're talking about a couple again. I get the words for it. I want you to drive me to work because I am too tired in the mornings and I just get more worn out. So work goes like hell. So I think I would get a little more simplicity in my life if you drove me to work every morning and then came back home and did whatever you needed to do. So you could imagine like a wife asking a husband that, a husband asking a wife that, or whatever. Um, a lot of people wouldn't realize from just what's happening in their day to day interactions and how mad they get at each other and how happy they pretend to be with each other and how happy they actually are with each other and that they're getting everything that society thinks they need and that mental health counselors need need but so many things are customized needs in our lives, giving the particular day and time that we're trying to get a particular need met. So if somebody wants just a little more rest, they might ask for a ride to work every day. Or they might ask for everybody to turn off all electronics at a certain part of the day. Or they might want to start taking melatonin. Or they might want to start taking Xanax and that kind of thing. And if a person requested to provide this new thing that is going to give them their met need, so the thing they're asking is the behavioral request, right? Or you could say the supply request. If I want a medicine, who do I want to give me that medicine? Well, I'm going to have to go to a doctor and get a prescription, and then I'm going to have to go to a pharmacist. A lot of bad things can happen on the way to you getting some kind of prescription that's going to fulfill your need of getting more rest, being more calm, of whatever it is. And that could be that things cost too much, right? And so just because you're not bothering to go to a doctor because you know it's going to cost a lot of money to go to the doctor because your insurance sucks. And it's going to cost you a lot of money to go and get that prescription filled because your insurance sucks. You're basically going to you're basically going to give up. And nobody's going to know you gave up. They're going to infer that you don't want it. And that's called mind reading. That's also called proving a negative. You can't prove that somebody doesn't want something. You can only infer that they want or need it by them telling you, or probably other evidence. When you see a kid with kwashiorkor or extreme emaciation, you can probably you'd be safe. You'd be sort of safe, 33%, 45% safe that that kid needs more food. But you could be wrong. That kid might need tapeworm medicine or surgery or however they treat those things. That person may have an adrenal problem that causes them to burn calories constantly all the time. That person might have PTSD, which means they're on hypervigilance all the time, which means that they're not sleeping, they don't get a hunger desire, and all that kind of stuff. And that could be happening to a child of 7 years old. So capitalism doesn't work because it doesn't have the capacity to walk in and ask people what they need. Usually, a person knows the product that they're good at providing or the service that they're good at providing. And they're trying to find out how that service might be for you. I'm a mental health counselor. I have a filter and a a skills designed interest in having people come to me for what I'm able to give them. So, like any purveyor, I'm trying to find those people who need my service. And I have a filter that tells me that this person needs my service, and that person needs my service, and that person needs my service. Even though maybe this one didn't, but these two did. Or maybe this one did a little bit, and this one does a little bit, and this one does a little bit. My filter serves my interest, and I'm going to want to show people more likely how they need what I have to offer rather than do they need what I have to offer. Now, I do a lot of introspection and I talk to a lot of people, and I do believe probably everybody needs therapy several times throughout their lives. Um, Probably because I've used therapy, because I believe it works. And it turns out it does work. Could be a self fulfilling prophecy. Um, But you get my point. If I was a banana salesperson, I would probably involuntarily believe that people need bananas a little more than they really do, right? So you can start to see why I'm associating individual human personal needs in couples and other relationships with relationships between buyers and sellers. Now, capitalism is a system in which most of the time only certain people can choose what to sell. Most people are stuck with selling their labor. I'm kind of one of those. I provide a service, and that's where I work with my body and my mind and deplete those resources. And in exchange, I ask for a certain amount of money. So all employees in some way are selling labor. People who have capital can allow their capital to work for them. For example, I own a home. I can use the fact that my home is luckily appreciating on a regular and somewhat predictable basis, even during these rocky ups and downs with house sales and stuff like that. Having a home rather than renting a home are quite categorically different things. A person's rental space is not going to automatically appreciate for them, it's going to appreciate for the person they're renting it from. So while you are paying that person rent, you are also taking care of a property they own so that when in the future they desire to sell it for quite a bit more than they paid, not through their labor got them a certain amount, but the rest of it was that capital is appreciating. The home is their capital. Capital is what you own. Some capital makes money for you over time or based on what other people are trading and that sort of thing, and what you can trade. And it's complex to describe, but there are some things, if you want to be a day-to-day trader, you're taking a lot of risk. But if you're going to be a long-term trader, you just buy things that are likely to appreciate. And then you just wait until it's time to retire to sell them all. Or start to take out bits and pieces of them on a monthly basis so you can live off of the income of those things. And the capital investments you make are often based on the labor other people are doing. So, for example, when you got people living in your house, a lot of times, yes, tenants can beat up your house, but they're also monitoring your house. And when it's in their interest, they're going to tell you that something needs to be fixed. And that saves you a lot of money in the future because if no one's watching your territory, eventually it will fall apart. So your tenants, so tenants provide you. And I have to confess that we also have some rental properties that we rent out. So I watch a lot of left wing stuff on the YouTubes because I don't know. I was raised during the 60s and 70s, and that turned some people hard leftists, and that turned people far to the right. And I happen to be on the liberal side. Um, so in watching one of these YouTubers, a person came up with a definition for capitalist that is actually measurable, whether you're a capitalist or not a capitalist. And it has nothing to do with your beliefs. He said basically you are either a capitalist or a laborer. And I forget what percentage he stated, but a capitalist is someone who makes above a certain percentage of their income off of their capital working for them. And a non capitalist, a laborer, or a working class person is someone who makes below that certain percent from capital investments. They make, so let's just say it's 50%. If you make more than 50% of your income off of capital you own and trade and buy and sell, then you are a capitalist. If you make less than 50% off of that, then you are a working class person because you're using 50% or more of your income from your labor. So let's just hike that up to 75%. Let's say unless you are unless you are making more than 75% or more of your income from capital investments. Unless you're doing that, you're not a capitalist. Everybody who's doing that is a capitalist. So you're making 75% or more of your income from your labor. Some people are making probably 100% of their income from their labor. So what's the difference? And why does that even matter? Because time and your physical body are depleted by your labor. And someone who is making more, 75% or more of their income from capital is doing a lot less labor than someone in the working class. They are using their mind. They are working hard, but they're just seeing it rain in every day. Every day. The calories you burn do not make close to someone who is making most of their income from capital investments. I don't think anyone can make money without any labor. Yeah, I think they can actually. Yeah, you can. You can invest wisely and and then you can invest 2.3% of your worry and checking your investments and doing some buying and selling. But you can see how capital just starts to work on its own. It just starts to come in and come in and come in. And all you have to do is be careful of changes in the markets based on trends, based on climate change, and based on wars. And unless you have to do that, basically you're just letting other people's work make you your money. So as a working class person, you are making it so someone else has to work less to make more than you do. That doesn't always work out all the time, though, because a lot of employers, they're not capitalist. They're working their behinds off. I'm going to say that somebody who owns a McDonald's franchise might be, like they own their own McDonald's. They franchised out one location or whatever that. I don't know how that works, but I don't know if they're making more money than they're working for with their labor. I think that a lot of them work their butts off, even if it's just spending all the time communicating back with the corporation and talking to the employees and figuring out all the decisions they have to decide and figuring all kinds of things like that. I think that they might have to do a lot of mental labor. And by the way, let me just tell you, your mind is physical. Whenever you're doing mental labor, you are depleting cells in your brain. You're depleting the neurotransmitters and hormones that your body uses. You are actually stressing out because any work requires stress, any thinking requires some stress or strain or elevation of energy use. And so you're also breaking down tissue while you're doing that. When you are doing hard thinking work 8 hours a day, you are actually depleting other cells in your body because you're getting like cortisol and epinephrine and norepinephrine going through your body, and the signaling says, let's tear down tissue and get things done. So, yes, mental labor is labor. So, if you think you're just working with your mind and that makes you a capitalist because you're not lifting things except for your butt off the chair to go to the bathroom, think again. You are probably a laborer. Most people probably don't qualify as capitalists. Again, I used arbitrary percentages because I don't know what the appropriate percentage is. The video I watched was probably by a creator named Second Thought. That's their YouTube channel name. And they probably used some actual research, economic research criteria to try to decide what percentage makes you a worker, a laborer, a working class person versus a capitalist class. So, yes, I sound like some kind of commie, but I'm not trying to. I would love it if we could find some kind of arrangement where everybody gets to play the game. Okay, but how do I round this back around to why capitalism can't provide the needs of the population? And I'm just saying that if a husband and wife, or a wife and wife, or a husband and husband, um, can't hypothesize that everything's going fine because I'm getting everything I want, because that would be the invisible hand of marital love, basically. And we know that doesn't work. We know you have to sit down and have very, like, intellectually difficult conversations to find out what another person actually wants and whether you have the ability to provide that for them or not. And the invisible hand of the marketplace, in terms of capitalism, shows us that unless we're actually trying to find out what each individual needs from time to time, or just giving them the money they need, like universal basic income, and let the people spend the money how they want, that's more likely to get people to meet needs because nobody, even though people are bad at knowing their own needs, nobody knows what you need like you know what you need. And you will learn by trial and error the things that you don't need and the things that you do need by spending money on stupid stuff and realizing eventually through a much pain and trial that, oh my gosh, I don't need that. I've been wasting my money. But you cannot really learn what you need unless you have the freedom and resources to experiment that way. And so, therefore, I do recommend something like a universal basic income, 100 a month, 3,000 a month. I don't know the proper number for that. What happens when you give universal basic income, is that money goes right back into the economy anyway. Terrible spenders will more quickly feed it right back into the economy. Better spenders are going to be better at rewarding those people that give people what they want. But the person who knows what you want is you. No one else knows as good as you. And they certainly can't infer it because you're walking around smiling all the time or whatever. So maybe there's something more sophisticated that I could say to clear this up even further. No one knows what you want except you. So you have to figure out what you want, and then you have to tell people what you want. And those people have to listen to specifically what you want. I need some cheese. I need you to wash my car. I need you to pick me up off the ground because I'm not sitting here on purpose. I fell down. I need you to let me sit on the ground because I'm rather enjoying myself on the ground. So, A, you need to know, talk, and be heard. B, the other person has to be able and willing to give you that. C, they need to figure out if and what if they need anything and what it is they need in order to feel okay providing you with that. They might be able to get that thing from someone else and won't need to ask you for anything in exchange. However, sometimes they're going to want and need something from you to make it feasible and realistic for them to provide you for what you're asking for. We all have internal needs, but when we are doing certain exchanges, we are now talking about behavioral and product based requests. I want you to give me this thing or do this thing for me. And it has to be very clearly spelled out. And if you're going to be giving something to someone in return for that, they might not want $1,000 from you. They might want you to go on a date with them, or they might want you to explain how to find a good veterinarian or something like that. And you can't just do this by walking up to somebody who's got a supermarket and getting some cheese and giving them the money that they put on the cheese. Um, because economic forces have a macro effect. Okay, the general economic forces that we talk about in capitalism have a macro effect on populations. But what matters in everybody's everyday life is the micro effect on you and the persons you're interacting with. And the only way to deal with that is to give people more power to make personal choices and give them more access to the things that give us power. And money is the most liquid of assets. It's the most liquid of it's the thing that is so much easier to exchange than anything else. So, below a certain amount of income, you're not going to be able to get some things that are very important. And how much labor it requires you to get that amount of money, right? Right? So let's say I can get this amount of money without doing any actual work, right? But for you to get this amount of money, you have to do this much work, right? You are going to be losing a lot more than what you gain in the process. So everybody, in order to be able to negotiate fairly and on an equal level with everybody else, just needs a little seed money. Punchline that you might not have been expecting is there's plenty of seed money because everybody except for some very wealthy people are paying taxes in the United States to a very big government that can amass a lot of taxes and can easily, if the folks in government were willing to, seed you that money every week, month, or year. And you will eventually figure out how to use that money appropriately. But if that's not happening, you're not getting what you need because you're not spending money on what you need, possibly because you can't afford what you need or you don't know what you need. And therefore, people are going to stop supplying it. Flip side there is if lots of people want or need that thing or have been talked into thinking they need that thing is going to get more expensive. So the more you need something, the less able you are going to be able to get it. So I don't think capitalism can ever fix that unless it makes everyone a property owner, everyone an owner of the kind of property that allows you to create products or services and the kind of property that's going to make you passive income. If everybody doesn't have the ability to make passive income to some equal degree, some people are just going to be suffering hardcore. And I think in the United States, one of the problems is, if we're all suffering together, there's some consolation in that. And it does appear that in countries where people are suffering together, they feel better than Americans do because Americans have this awareness that let's say some people are suffering to this level in many countries, but they're together and they understand that they have brotherhood and sisterhood and they have the warmth of love, right? But let's say in America, we all generally on average make this, but it works out this way. A lot of people are making this much money. Well, no, let's say it this way. A lot of people are making this much money, but a lot of people are making this much money. And there are so many resources that are hoarded that would be nice to have that you just can never dream of having. And down here, you can't even get some basic necessities because these people are driving up the prices. Thank you, and good day.